Elliot Grayson had always dreamed of running his own business, but every attempt ended in failure. His coffee shop closed down after a chain moved in next door. His bookstore never got enough foot traffic. His online business flopped before it even started. With nothing left but a dwindling savings account and a heart full of desperation, he wandered through the old part of town, looking for inspiration. That's when he saw it, an old, dusty shop with a sign that read, Whimsy Wonders Emporium. The building was nestled between two modern stores, its wooden sign swinging slightly in the breeze. The windows were covered in layers of dust, and a "For Sale" sign hung crookedly on the door. Elliot stepped inside. The air smelled of aged wood, parchment, and something sweet, like cinnamon and honey. The store was filled with peculiar trinkets, glowing bottles, moving paintings, a collection of masks that seemed to shift expressions when no one was looking. The shelves were lined with old books with unreadable titles, and a strange grandfather clock in the corner ticked backward instead of forward. An old man, dressed in an elegant midnight blue coat, emerged from the back. His eyes twinkled as he studied Elliot. "Looking to buy?" the man asked, his voice smooth but ancient. Elliot hesitated. He had no experience running a store like this, but something about it called to him. "How much?" the man smiled. "For you, $1. Elliot blinked. "What's the catch?" The man leaned in. "It only works for those who believe in magic." Elliot laughed nervously but agreed. With a handshake, the deal was done. But as soon as Elliot turned to ask another question, the old man was gone. That night, Elliot sat at the counter, flipping through the old books. He had no idea what half the items in the shop were or how he was supposed to sell them. There was no instruction manual, no receipts, nothing. Then, just as the clock struck midnight, something extraordinary happened. The shop came to life. The lanterns flickered on by themselves. The books whispered to one another. The tiny figurines on the shelves moved, stretching their limbs like waking from a deep slumber. The masks on the wall chuckled softly, and the grandfather clock spun its hands wildly before stopping at an unknown hour. Elliot gasped as a small, shimmering figure appeared in front of him, a fairy, no taller than his hand, with golden wings that shimmered like morning sunlight. "Welcome, new shopkeeper," she said, her voice like a bell. "We were wondering when you'd wake us up." Elliot rubbed his eyes, convinced he was dreaming. What is this place?" The fairy hovered before him. "This is no ordinary shop. It's an emporium of magic. At night, it comes alive, preparing for the next day. The items choose their owners. They know who needs them most." Elliot was speechless. The fairy continued, "But there is one rule. The shop must never fall into the wrong hands. Its magic is ancient, and if misused, it could cause great harm." Elliot barely had time to process her words before the shelves began to rearrange themselves, sorting the items in ways that made perfect sense. A dusty register hummed to life, showing a list of names, customers who would visit the next day, before they even knew it themselves. Elliot felt a rush of excitement. Maybe, just maybe, this shop could change everything for him. Within a week, Whimsy Wonders Emporium became the most talked about store in town. Word spread fast. Customers who walked in never left empty-handed. An old woman found a mirror that showed her lost memories of her late husband. A struggling musician picked up a violin that played exactly the song his heart longed to create. A lonely child chose a stuffed bear that whispered comforting words in the night. Elliot didn't know how it worked, but the shop's magic guided him. Every night, the shop rearranged itself, preparing for the next day's customers. And every morning, Elliot opened the doors to find people waiting, drawn by something they couldn't explain. But success always attracts envy. One evening, as Elliot was locking up, a man in an expensive suit stepped forward. His presence alone made the air feel colder. "Mr. Grayson," the man said smoothly. "I'm Charles Whitmore. I own several businesses in this area, and I'd like to make you an offer for this shop." Elliot stiffened. "It's not for sale." Whitmore's smile didn't waver. "I'll pay you double, triple, even. This is prime real estate, after all." Elliot shook his head. "It's not about the money." Whitmore's eyes darkened. "You'll regret that decision." That night, Elliot couldn't sleep. The fairy, sensing his unease, warned him, "He knows there's something special here. He'll try to take it." The next morning, Elliot arrived to find the shop ransacked. Shelves were overturned, books torn apart, magical trinkets shattered. The grandfather clock was cracked. The lanterns flickered weakly, as if the shop itself was wounded. Elliot clenched his fists. He wouldn't let this happen. Determined to protect the shop, Elliot spent the day repairing what he could. But as night fell, an ominous presence filled the air. Whitmore returned, but this time, he wasn't alone. A group of men in suits followed him, their expressions cold and unreadable. "Last chance," Whitmore said. "Sell me the shop, or I'll take it." Elliot stood his ground. "Over my dead body." Whitmore smirked. "That can be arranged." The lights in the shop flickered. The grandfather clock let out a deep, unnatural chime. The fairy appeared beside Elliot, her wings glowing fiercely. "You've made a mistake coming here, Whitmore." Before he could react, the shop fought back. The masks on the walls howled, sending a gust of wind through the store. Books flew from the shelves, pages flipping wildly. A golden rope snaked across the floor, wrapping around Whitmore's legs, dragging him toward the door. The shattered trinkets reassembled themselves midair, glowing with power. Whitmore screamed as the shop's magic expelled him. His men ran, terrified, as the door slammed shut behind them. Elliot let out a breath, heart pounding. "Is it over?" The fairy smiled. "For now." From that day on, Whitmore never set foot near Whimsy Wonders again. The shop healed, its magic growing stronger under Elliot's care. Customers continued to come, leaving with items that changed their lives. Elliot had finally found his calling, not just as a shopkeeper, but as the guardian of the magic emporium. And as long as he believed in magic, the shop would always be there, waiting for those who needed it most.